Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Anthem video, and today I want to talk to you guys about loot and progression. There was a brand new live stream last week where the guys at BioWare took a deeper look into how we can customize our javelins. They spoke about loot rarity, some of the items we can obtain, weapons, gear pieces, components. They spoke about how we can create custom builds, synergies, ultimately all the important stuff that in a game like this keeps us playing for hours on end. So in this video, I want to take a deeper look into that and break down everything they spoke about. However, just before we get started, if you guys want to grab yourself one of these awesome limited edition Arekkz Gaming festive jumpers, then they're on sale right now over on the Endgame store. There's only 100 that have been made. They're super limited. They're actually knitted jumpers. They're not just printed designs. These are actually woolen knitted jumpers. They're pretty warm, so if you guys want to grab one in time for the festivities, then head over to the store. They're live right now. Definitely grab one. Also, if you guys want to enter the giveaway for the limited edition Nintendo Switch, the Super Smash Bros. One, you can also click the link in the description box down below. Now let's get started. Now, kicking things off at number 1, the very first thing worth calling out is that you will have multiple options within loot for your skill abilities. If you guys cast your mind back to when I did those Javelin class breakdowns for the Interceptor, Storm, Colossus and Ranger, you'll remember that within your loadout options, you have 2 offensive skill options and you also have your support options. And then within those, you have options to choose from. Typically, there's, say, 5 per slot on the assault front, and then there's 2 in the support front. So on the surface, if you just saw that information, then you might have thought, well, does that mean that I only have 12 options to choose from in my build? Which, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a great deal. And that's not actually the case. When you actually dive deeper into the loot system, you'll see that within each of those options, you have multiple options to choose from. So to give you an example, something like the Interceptor, under the assault system, it has the Seeker Glaive, the Acid Bomb, the Cryo Glaive, the Cluster Mine, and the Spark Dash. Those are the 5 available options in one slot. But each of those skills is an available loot item. The same can be said for the Colossus, which they actually showed off in the live stream. You can see here that they have the Flamethrower, and below that is the icon for the Railgun. But you'll also notice to the right, there are 2 of these same icons. Each of these depicts a different skill, and as you can see here, the skills themselves carry different bonuses. So, even though you might have, say, 5 skills to choose from within that particular loadout option, you can get an infinite number of those when it comes to the actual loot drops. You can get rare versions, uncommon versions, epic versions, legendary versions, masterwork versions. So in actual fact, that initial pool of 12 suddenly got exponentially bigger. And the most important thing to factor in is that within those skills, sure, some of them might have fixed bonuses, some of them might have fixed power values, but they also have what are known as inscriptions, which I'll speak more about later on, but this is essentially the random roll aspect of the game. And then, of course, once you work into Masterworks, you also have additional perks on top. So in actual fact, we do have a ton of variety just within those limited options. So, first things first, yes, there will be a ton of loot options, not just extended to your weapons. This also applies to your available skills and your abilities. Now moving on from there, I did mention briefly just a moment ago inscriptions. This is another aspect of the game that will keep us coming back. When it comes to these types of games, these sort of looter shooters, one of the things that often keeps you chasing is the notion of random rolls. And when it comes to both weapons and gear pieces in this game, while some of them may have fixed values, for example, if you get a weapon that has a particular name and you get that same weapon, then the base values, when it comes to power, when it comes to damage, recharge rate, different things like that, they may be fixed. But then below that, you have inscriptions. That's these sections down here. Now, for rare items, blue items, you then typically have 2 inscriptions, but then when you get to the higher rarities, you can have 3. And these are the random roll aspect of the game. So, for example, in the situation of the Colossus from earlier, yes, do bear in mind that some of the values right here list 0%. That's because this is a development build, so it doesn't actually list accurate values, but you can see that one of the examples here is plus Javelin heat damage and plus Javelin shotgun ammo. So, that's an example where you have that on. That can benefit you, but then you might decide that, say, you run assault rifles a lot. Then you might go searching for that same skill or that same piece of gear, but instead with a different inscription on. And that is, again, the random roll aspect that will, of course, keep you coming back. They also said that when you craft gear, because, of course, you can craft as well, you can see the crafting tab at the top of the screen, then that, too, can yield different inscriptions. So while you do not have the option to re-roll inscriptions, they said that's not a thing in the game, essentially the way that you can re-roll is simply by crafting again. So if you get the blueprint for a particular gun that you like, then you can craft that multiple times to hopefully snag the inscription that you want. They also did say, rather interestingly, that blueprints will scale. So if you do get a blueprint, say at level 10, and then of course you then craft that weapon a little bit later, it can craft relevant to your level. Moving on from there to number 3, you have components. Components is another aspect to your build outside of your weapons and your gear pieces that allow you to further fine-tune your build options. So if you dive in here, for example, when they first started taking a look at the Colossus, you can see there's a couple of basic ones here. One of them is Explosives Expert, so when you have this equipped, all blast damage is increased by a percentage of the base damage, plus of course these two have inscriptions on them. So again, while if you get a component that is, say, Explosives Expert, the base perk may be fixed, the inscriptions can again change. So you might then get to the point where you have an explosives component, but then it has, say, a fire inscription that gives you increased flame damage that you then might pair with a flame turret. You get the example. They also jumped forward a little bit later on in the stream to take a look at a Masterwork Ranger, and this showed off some of the slightly more advanced components. So again, in this situation, you can see that you've got one like Combined Arms, where defeating an enemy with your right bumper attack increases your left bumper attack by 50%, and of course on top of that you have inscriptions. So we'll speak more about Masterworks in just a second, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of variety within these. So this is really about kind of the mod. You can think of components as like the icing on the cake, the cherry on the cake if you will, whereby once you've got your weapons and you've got your abilities and you've got your skills that you're happy with, you then start searching for these to then further round out the way you want to play. Of course, moving on from there, a popular question from a lot of people will probably be like, well, hold on a minute, if there's all these different options and all these different gear pieces, all these different components, can I make multiple loadouts? And the answer is yes. They've shown this multiple times, but you can of course go to the menu, you can create a new loadout, you can set up your javelin in whatever way you please, and then if you decide that, say, for one of the activities you want to have a flame build, whereas another one you might want to have like a, range build or a shotgun build, you can make all of these different ones and you can then swap to them on the fly. Then moving on from there, to return to a topic I touched on briefly, and that is Masterworks. Masterworks is another tier of rarity that not only have increased power, increased options, but they also come with unique bonuses on top. So, when you start with your rarities, things like uncommon, common, rare, epic, that sort of stuff, they get increasingly better as you go, with of course more inscriptions, more options, things like that. But then when you get to Masterwork, you have special abilities on top. So if you take a look at a Masterwork component, for example, like the one we spoke about earlier, you have your base power for it, you have your inscriptions, plus you have the intrinsic text that is written there in orange that basically details what this does on top. So in the situation of this component, Tip of the Spear, using your ultimate increases your gear damage by 50% of the base damage for 5 seconds. But if you then go and take a look at one of the Assault Launcher gear pieces, for example, this is an item here that you can get at different rarities. If you get the, the rare version, the common version, the epic version, they will fundamentally behave in a very similar manner. However, the Masterwork version has an additional bonus on top. As you can see here, when it detonates, it will detonate an electric explosion when defeating an enemy. So whereas the regular version of this might just explode and deal damage as you would expect, but of course if you have this version, it explodes, but then it also dishes out the electric energy at the same time. So you can now begin to see that Masterworks can also change the core structure and the core kind of behavior of a particular gear piece. So again, not only do you have stats to mess around with, but of course you also have these additional abilities that can then present themselves. So this too adds another layer to the depth of your build options. And then finally, when it comes to, of course, building your character up and building up your javelin to the endgame activities, you do have gear score. You can see in the top right corner of the screen, there is a gear score there. This is essentially a cumulative number that takes on board all of the gear you have currently equipped, and it will then give you a number which towards the end of the game will be used to essentially influence or kind of inform you of your readiness for certain activities. So if you come up to like a really difficult activity and it says, hey, we recommend you be gear score 430 and you're only gear score 240, you might be like, you know what, I should probably go away and come back a little bit later because I'm not ready for this. And of course, as you progress through the ranks, you will also be referred to in different ways. You can see here that this ranger is predominantly masterworked, however they do have some legendary pieces, so the gear score they're currently listed as a legendary ranger. I believe that given that it is majority masterwork, they said that's a bug, it should actually be listed as a masterwork ranger, but the point is that as you progress through the ranks, as you get better and better gear, so too will your gear score increase, as will your named rank. So there you have it, that's a quick rundown of some of the core components of Anthem's loot system based on some of the stuff they showed during the live stream. Lots of exciting stuff, and more reassuringly, lots of depth to the system, which is obviously, in a game like this, something that will keep us playing time and time again. So definitely can't wait to hear more, but for the time being, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you guys next time. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the end game store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the endgame store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here, but once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.